上交怎么样？上交纸质版报告会给你盖个戳。哎，
我让你们的可不能没有问题。
现在哪里的？
上交以后，他给你个。
我们上次上交的时候有没出啊？
什么都没有啊，日本还说 OK。
不是一个学院。就是我这是什么人文学院。
剪掉。
还往那边穿一个扣头。宽一点，扣着宽一点。
别搁上面吧。来。
没事，缝机上也行。我这个缝机上面放衣服。
你放电我压不住。
啊，
你就放上面吧。
没有。
作业都交完了吗？把这个成绩感受出来。
现在都是
你们是前面。哇，这门复习中文是最多。
他没要。
Okay, everybody. So, if you remember where we got to yesterday, we were talking about web application security and looking at some of the vulnerabilities which you've all seen and lived through Rob the Bank, and so you should be very familiar with. And we talked about the different levels of attack, and again, you've worked through all of these in order to do Rob the Bank, particularly following the subtle clues. We also just remind ourselves of the kind of process that we go through when testing a new application. We get something like a web application. What do? We start by mapping it out, working out all the different aspects of it, working out how it all links together, working out all of the potential places for user input, because this is where user input comes in, where security vulnerabilities are introduced. Every form field, every URL parameter, every cookie value. If you just have an entirely static site with none of that input, there's nothing to worry about. It's as soon as you start allowing users to to interact with your application where these problems come in. So identifying all those places where the user can interact with the application. We've used tools to help us, stuff like Burp Suite has been very helpful, things like buzzers and that kind of thing, to make what would normally be a very manual process and automate the parts of it that we can automate. But we need to work in tandem between our actual brain and thinking about things logically and working through the application and using the automated tools to support us in that process, as all of you found. And this continual idea of being the anti-user, always doing what was not expected, always fighting against the actual always fighting against what you thought that they might have protected against or what they might have forgotten and trying to use that. And also this bit at the bottom as well about not giving up. It's an important balance to have because you don't want to spend ages and ages and ages trying to find a vulnerability that doesn't exist, but at the same time you don't want to end up in a situation where you try something, it doesn't work and you move on and you completely miss an entire massive SQL injection vulnerability that could lead to their application being exposed. When you're put into a position like you were with Rob the Bank, actually being a security consultant and testing an application, and you're saying, there is a vulnerability here, there isn't a vulnerability here, this area of the application is fine, that's a lot of weight on you if there is actually a vulnerability there, and you just missed it because you weren't dedicated enough to continue trying different forms of that vulnerability. So you need to be confident with what you're saying when you're saying that something is either vulnerable or not vulnerable. So just a reminder of all these vulnerabilities: you have SQL injection, information exposure, cross-site scripting, file upload, cross-site request forgery, things like authorization bypass, where the authorization either wasn't checked at all or was only checked at the wrong part of the process or only at the beginning of the process and it's possible to bypass that. Internal information, so error leakage, insecure information, parameter manipulation and basically bypassing validation or non-existent validation. Application logic, so what the application should actually be doing, and managing to branch it out in ways that weren't originally anticipated. Out-of-date software that needs updating. File inclusion, where static files are being loaded directly from the disk based on a URL parameter or based on some kind of parameter that the user can interfere with. Cookie manipulation, where you're storing data that can actually be manipulated and changed in the cookie. The cookie should ideally either be non-essential data, like specifying what theme you're using or how you want to sort something, or give you a token for stuff like authentication. It shouldn't be used for things like storing your user ID number or anything like that. Open redirects, where parts of the application allow you to bounce to other websites that could be used to bounce through your website. Things like an exposed application interface. And also backdoors in the application as well. These are all the kind of things that we've already seen and should be quite familiar to you. So, when we come on to this next question, you work at a bank and they have recently outsourced development of a web-based loan application system, separate to their online banking system. Now in this system, users enter in their personal details and background and their current circumstances, which are stored in a database, and they are then informed if they are eligible for a loan. The application is written in PHP and MySQL and is running on a Red Hat server. So this is an example of a kind of scenario that you're given, and there's a lot of very useful information there. And one of the main things that we're assessing you and testing you is your ability to take the general knowledge that we've covered in these lectures and be able to apply it to a particular situation. Because once you leave here and go on, what we'd like you to be able to see is actually apply what you've learned in cybersecurity to this particular application, this particular company. So what are the key things in this question that are interesting to us? Feel free to just shout out. What are, if you were underlining the words in the exam, saying, oh yeah, this is an important thing for us to look at, what are the key things that are mentioned here?
Users enter.
Pardon?
Users enter detail.
Yeah. And what other kind of things are important here?
Web-based application.
Web-based application. It's at the bank, so that's quite important because that's immediately meaning, you know, if this was something like you work at a company, at a butcher's company that does orders for turkeys at Christmas, you're going to be in a bit of a different situation to dealing with a bank where there's probably a lot more concerning data there. What else is interesting here?
Personal information.
Yes, personal information. People are going to be putting in things like how much they earn, their salaries, do they own a house? The kind of thing that would look rather bad if it got out there. Anything else?
Outsource.
Yes, they're outsourcing it, so it's going to be external people working on this application. Any other thoughts?
PHP and MySQL?
Yeah, PHP and MySQL, immediately saying what kind of language it's using, so we know what kind of application we'll be looking at. We also know that PHP isn't a particularly secure language. I'd probably feel a lot happier about it if it said that they were working in .NET. But yes, seeing PHP there, a little bit concerning. So yes, those are the kind of things that we're looking at. We're pulling out the context from the question, and we want to be thinking about all of that in our answers for it. So when it comes to saying what vulnerabilities could there be, we want to be thinking about what vulnerabilities could there be in this application. I don't just want you to be telling me every potential web vulnerability there is. So for example, things like talking about cross-site request forgery probably isn't overly relevant to this question, because all you'd be able to do is make an application on behalf of another person if you knew all of their details, which isn't, it's not actually causing a side effect for an action. Unless like it had an admin area where you could like approve or delete things, that's not so concerning to us. Or things like what vulnerabilities could there be? Talking about cookies and sessions, again, probably isn't so relevant here, because it's likely to just be a single form that they fill in and they get an answer. It's probably not even going to be setting up a session. It's probably not actually going to be assigning cookies. They're not going to come back to it again at a later time and continue filling it in. It's like when you go on and fill a Google form or something like that. You won't have a session or a cookie. You just go in, you fill the form, and then you get a response or an answer. So we'd like you to actually think about what's in the question there and use that in your answers. So if you want to go again, like we did before, and go to http://ecs.ninja, and then pick question 2 on there, and have a bit of a thought and work through each of these questions. What vulnerabilities could there be in this application? How could they test for these vulnerabilities in this application? And what could the consequences be within the context of a bank-based system for applying for loans with this kind of personal data of people inside it? So again, you've got about 6 or 7 minutes to walk through those questions, and we'll take a look and see what you come up with. And again, remember, you're perfectly welcome to talk to each other, get some conversation going, and have a think about this all together. You won't be able to do that in the exam, but now's the perfect opportunity to share ideas. Okay, should we be moving on to the second question now? Okay, you should be coming up to the third question now to talk about the consequences. Okay, do you want to just finish your final answers now? Okay, so let's take a look at the first question. So our first question was, what vulnerabilities could there be? And it's nice to see up there a very nice, large injection word, because we're talking about data going in, probably stuff being displayed out, which is a result, so it's very likely, and we also saw the keywords there about there being a database involved, so it's very likely we'll be seeing some cross-site scripting and some SQL injection. And indeed, those are probably the two most common vulnerabilities that we might see in this particular application. There are also some other suggestions there as well. Taking a look at what people were saying. So the important thing here is to remember it's within the context of the application. So if you just said there might be cross-site scripting, that's not going to get you very much. Really saying there's going to be cross-site scripting because users will be entering their personal details and their circumstances into the system. It's showing that you've actually looked at the question and are actually relating what you're saying to the actual situation. Similarly saying there might be SQL injection. Instead of saying there's SQL injection because it says that it's using a database, and therefore it's going to be capturing the data that users are storing in there, and the kind of data that users will be putting in there, will probably be stuff like text, or probably be numbers, it'll be different formats, and therefore that increases the likelihood or the possibility of there being SQL injection. Similarly, there might be out-of-date software. Some of you mentioned that as well. You've got the word date there at the side, particularly if they decide to build it on something like WordPress or something similarly delightful like that. This was actually a real example application from one of the banks that we looked at, and they did outsource it. They got some consultants to put together this loan-based application, and yes, they did actually build it on an out-of-date version of WordPress. Sometimes you can't make these things up. Information leakage, poor configuration, are other kinds of things to think about here as well. If they've not set it up properly, if it's possible to view other people's applications, if they've not properly added in access control, so if there is some kind of admin interface where you can look at all the results of this, and they've not properly protected that. These are all the kind of things that we are thinking about for what kind of vulnerabilities could there be. Now, there aren't specific right answers here. There is not a list of things that need to be ticked off. What we want you to see is that you've actually thought about it and thought about the kind of vulnerabilities that might be there and justified what you're saying. And as long as those justifications make sense, that's what we would be giving you the marks for. So to take a look at the second question. So this was talking about how would you go about testing for these vulnerabilities. How could we see and say this piece of software is safe, we're happy with this, we're ready to release it into the wild, or no, this needs to go back and it needs some further development. And you know this stuff, you've done it, you've been through this kind of process before. There were some good suggestions there. Those are just some of the keywords that people suggested using stuff like Burp Suite, talking about the way and process of working through and testing an application, looking at every parameter, trying to do injection, doing different attacks, looking at forms. All these answers here show me that you're very happy and have got the right kind of idea for what we're looking for here. But the one thing that I would say though is lots of this stuff is focusing on black box testing like you did with Rob the Bank. But remember that the question said that you work at the bank and you've got these external people to produce this application. Now, it's very likely that as a result of that, you would also have the source code or access to the application. So also do think about stuff like white box testing as well. If you've got the source code to it, you could be reviewing and analysing the source code too. You could be actually doing source code reviews and doing static analysis kind of style stuff on it as well. Because not only are you trying to do the dynamic analysis side of things, that's it, using stuff like Burp Suite and working through the application, but we can search through the source code and see, are there any direct SQL statements in there? Are there any direct file accesses? Is there anything like that that could allow us to have vulnerabilities as well? So do think about that aspect to it as well, and don't just always go for the most obvious of answers. And then finally, the final part of this was, what could the consequences be? And again, it was very good to see what people were coming up with here. We've got data, loss, leakage, reputation, brand, all these kind of things are exactly what we would be looking for here. Because remember that, this kind of data leakage, it said it was personal information, it's going to be banking information. That's potentially very, very dangerous for that kind of thing to be exposed. There's financial risk to it as well. Losing that kind of information is the kind of thing that they will have to pay very significant fines for. But not only that, but also you're going to be potentially losing customers. You've got the word customers up there. Your loss of brand reputation. Are you going to want to work at a bank that has just exposed all of their customers, salaries, and whether or not they've got houses, their addresses, and that kind of thing? There's also, things like compromise as well, further access people mentioned, because remember, if this system, even if it is an isolated separate system, if it's in the bank network and they compromise that system, then from that system they can then get further into the bank network and start accessing other systems. So although it's separate to the online banking, if it's all in the same area and they can gradually start working from that server through to other servers, then potentially the whole network could be exposed. And even if you can only get to another couple of servers around there, like say the database server, you'll start finding these bridges going backwards and forwards because that server's probably got a backing up thing that's going in there. And as soon as you start getting more and more into the internal area and not the servers that they know are outside on the public, if you've been able to find passwords and get yourself a little bit deeper in or get further into their network, the further internal you get, usually the worse security will be, because people are like, oh, well, we don't really need to worry about updating that machine. It's not on the public network. It's not part of the public one. We only need to worry about the web servers on the front. Forgetting that there are perfect pathways from those web servers further into the network. They might be able to take control of the site and steal data. Some people mention that as well. So, you know, a perfect way to do a phishing attack is if you gain access to a server sitting in, actually sitting in their network, signed with a valid certificate. You know, if you've got a bank certificate, a bank URL, and then you just change the form slightly to also ask for their PIN number and their password, and change the form, so instead of storing it in their database, it emails you, and you just subtly modify those files. It might take a while before they notice, at which point, how many bank account numbers and details have you now stolen and been able to seize? So yes, you could use it for phishing. You could also install malware on the site as well. So again, if you're able to manipulate the pages and things, inject some JavaScript in there, you know, if there was cross-site scripting, you know, that's enough for us to be able to run JavaScript on every page or on potential pages, and therefore be able to run exploit kits and try and pick up people into our botnet as well. And subtle, unnoticeable changes as well. So remembering what I was talking about in the previous lecture, where we talked about how there's a movement away from just releasing mass things, but keeping a foothold in that system, just being able to change stuff and manipulate stuff. It might, and if that system is overly trusted, it might be that it puts something into the database and says, yeah, this customer's loan is approved. Then if people trust that, and then it was possible to manipulate that by bending the application logic or something like that, you might end up giving loans to people that are unsuitable. So there's financial repercussions through that. So hopefully you can see how we've thought about it. We've not just said they might lose data, and we've not just said they might get hacked. We've been explaining the repercussions of what it means on their system. If you imagine it as sitting down and having a meeting, having a coffee with the person who runs the system, and they say, so what could it mean for us? It's that conversation that you're having. You're explaining it to them. You're not just saying these are the general consequences, but what could it mean for that bank? Why would it be bad for them if these particular things happen? And that's really important to think about in the exam. We don't want to just see you reciting lists off of Wikipedia. Anybody can do that. We want to see that you actually understand these vulnerabilities and what they mean and what could happen and how you could find them on those particular applications. So continuing on, after that we did a bit of look at things like analysing servers. We went through the RobServe coursework and we had a bit of a play with those kinds of technologies there. So when analysing a server, you want to look around the server and learn what's on it. What services are there? What open ports are there? What file structure is there? What users are there? How is it configured? The configuration, as most of you hopefully found on the RobServe coursework, is absolutely key. Because a poor configuration for something like Samba, or for NFS, or for LDAP is exposing information, allowing full read-write access to the file system, and you see this all the time because people don't know how to configure their services properly. And looking at how it works, then begin to start looking at the vulnerabilities. What can you do that you shouldn't be able to do? What isn't actually needed? Is there anything that isn't working properly or could be abused? And then begin to look for exploitation. Are there any signs that the server has been compromised? And the kind of things to look about here is old software, service configuration, server configuration, network and security protection, malware and compromise, remote access. These are all things to look and think about. And remember the process that we went through on analysing the server. And this should be very similar to the kind of stuff that you did with RobServe. And this is just a nice summary of going through all of these things. You know, is there anything not managed by package management? Are there any backdoors? Has it been infected by malware? Is there anything that needs updating? Are there any vulnerable services? Is there anything exposed that shouldn't be exposed? Are the permissions for users secure? Can users be able to elevate themselves up and do privilege escalation? Are the configuration files for needed services secure? So the things that you know have to be running, have they been set up in a secure way? So this leads us on to our last question that we're looking at today. You've just started working as a new person in charge of security at an accounting company. They have a central server providing remote access, a file server, a database server, and a web server. The server has not been maintained for years, but the accounting company were quite happy because it just kept on working. What might be your biggest concerns here? How could you test these concerns? So in a similar way to what we did with the web applications looking at web applications. Now if we're examining a server, how might we go about testing those concerns? And what steps might you need to do to secure the server? So again, if you want to go to ECS.ninja again and work through on question 3 and work through those ones, you've got about 5 or 6 minutes to step through that, and we'll take a look and see how well you can do not just at the web application side, but also looking at servers in a more general sense as well. Okay, you've had about half the time now, so we should be about halfway through question B now. Okay, do you want to just finish off and just do your, just say what you've got so far, and then we'll take a look at what all of you have thought about.
consensus 嘛 ，big is 的 consensus 就是好多嘛，你自己关心到哪些方面嘛？那也是好多方面嘛，不是一个我觉得。
big is 不就是一个？
那他要是one of the big is， 那才是一个。
你说这他他妈写了 S。
你发的 QQ 是发的什么？图片？
这张屏幕。
Okay, so for the first question we were asking about what kind of vulnerabilities could there be. Now remember the emphasis on this is actually looking at the whole server, not just at the web application. So although web application was mentioned, we want you to actually think about the web server. So yes, you could just mention offhand about web applications and vulnerabilities there, but you also need to be thinking about the actual software and the actual configurations that are there as well. And it's good that you spotted that. We talked a bit about the database, we talked about things like usernames and passwords, talked about the applications that are running on there. Some of the answers were mentioning things like privilege escalation, if you're able to exploit one of the servers and then gain administrative access. Things like the file server or any of the files exposed, all the kind of stuff that you looked at with RobServe. The second part of the question was asking how could you test for these vulnerabilities, and again it's all just talking about the same process that you worked through with RobServe here, so it's going along. You know, what ports are open, what services are running, what processes are running. So again, some of you focus a little bit too much on the web side of things here. You need to look at the question that's talking about the servers. And there's more here than just a web application. We're looking at the actual network side of things here. And then the final part of that as well was what could the consequences be. And again, the final bit was the final bit was what might you need to do to secure the server. And again, very, very similar things here, talking about that. Now, what I thought this would be a good time to take a look at as well is to take a quick walk through the RobServe coursework and what kind of things you should have been finding and seeing there. So if you just give me a second and I'll switch over and we can run through that coursework very quickly as well. So just to finish off on that same kind of aspect of revision, looking at servers here, we're going to take a look at what to do with RobServe. So what were the problems with RobServe? Well, we had old software, we had a compromised system, we had insecure configuration, unnecessary services, there was no logging or auditing, there was broken authentication, and there was no security protection. There are a few smaller things as well, but these were the big issues that we're looking at RobServe, and this is what I was expecting you to talk about. So when it came to old software, the biggest thing as well was that there was an ancient version of WordPress there, full of vulnerabilities, and you needed to either upgrade, either automatically or manually, WordPress. There was an old operating system distribution on there, which is no longer supported, so again, it was good to see that most of you took the opportunity there to update and upgrade that. There was lots of old packages on there, again, update and upgrade that using package management. There were also some things outside of package management. There was a custom compiled version of PHP on there, which is far harder to maintain. So it's important to switch that over to being managed in package manager, because that way it gets updated with the rest of the system. The system was compromised. It was obvious that the system had been attacked and somebody had done some malicious stuff in there in order to allow themselves back in. There were some SecuID binaries that were deliberately set up in order to give root to normal users, an easy way to bypass any protection and gain full access to the system. They shouldn't exist. They should have just been deleted. There were some backdoor listeners on there. Quite a lot of you spotted that by using Nmap and saw that there were ports that were open, allowing direct access into the system. Also, some of you, but not all of you, spotted that the machine was infected with a rootkit as well, which was hiding certain processes and hiding itself. And if you use some of the rootkit detection tools, you would have noticed that that was there. The big part of this, though, came down to the insecure configuration. Sudo was set up so that any user of any group was allowed root access via sudo. pkexit was also running and set up in the same way. There was SMTP running on there, but it was set up as an open mail gateway, allowing all email that anyone wanted to send through that system would be passed on, a very dangerous thing to do. PHP was set up in an insecure way, set up for a development environment, not for a live website. Samba gave full access to all folders with read-write access. Apache was set up poorly. MySQL allowed full access to all the databases. PHPMyAdmin didn't need a password at all. And there was also a public backup that most of you spotted that was doing a backup of the database and dumping it into the public web root that anybody could download. So the insecure configuration there was a big part of that here. There was also unnecessary services, so there was things like NFS that was running, again another file sharing thing, but it wasn't something that was actually needed. It was giving remote file access to everything, that was best turned off. NIST was running, giving user information, including password hashes, again, out to anybody that wanted it. Publicly exposed, turn it off. LDAP was the same. There was Telnet running on there as well. Telnet is very insecure. Nobody needs it anymore, but some Linux distributions come with it by default and turn it on for rather ridiculous reasons. Make sure that was turned off. None of those things were needed. That wasn't what Rob wanted. There's no logging or auditing, so some of the log files had all been redirected to /dev/null. So you had to remove the /dev/null symlinks in order to enable that logging. Syslog itself is disabled, and various other logging things are turned off. And without logging, it's far harder to deal with a system that gets compromised. And you would have found your job a lot easier reversing the damage to the system if those logs had been available. So getting that back up and running is very important. There was broken authorization. PAM, which is the part of Linux that does authentication, was set to default allowed. This is what meant that you could put in any password you want, and it would always accept it. Because instead of it having a rule that says, oh, if it's bad, deny, PAM was set up so that if authentication failed, it would just say, oh, it's all right, let them in anyway. And this affected lots of stuff. It was probably a thing that you discovered, well, most of you discovered if you ever typed into it and you were like, oh, I think I've typed that password wrong. And it just let you straight in. And it allows you to do that with everything. It's a really clever strategic backdoor thing, because most system administrators won't notice it. It's a tiny line buried at the bottom of the configuration file that nobody dares look in. And a normal system administrator will just always presume their password is correct, and will never try putting in invalid passwords to see whether or not they can or can't get in. So this is this is actually something that I've seen quite a few compromisers do recently, because it's very hard to detect, very subtle, but would allow any attacker anywhere to keep on being able to get back into that system as any user account, and then to elevate as root with any user account. There are users in there that have no passwords at all. You can just log in without a password. There are some dodgy user accounts on there as well that look like they're being created as part of an exploit. And also the daemon accounts that were running, with stuff like Apache and things, were allowed to run shells and log in interactively into the system. Now, any services should be set to have a shell of sbin/no-login and should not have any passwords, so that they are just user accounts that services run as. You shouldn't be able to log into them interactively. There's also no security protection. The firewall was disabled, so it just allowed everything in and out. It was just like, yeah, you can have that, yeah, no problem there. So ideally, we should have enabled and turned on the firewall and configured it, and only allowed the needed public services in and out. Also, SD Linux, which provides additional layer of protection, is disabled as well. That helps make sure that someone can't just use Apache in order to gain full access to the system and start a shell. So it's an extra layer of protection there, and all you had to do was enable that module. There are a few other little vulnerabilities and bits and pieces in Rob's server as well, but that was the key stuff that we were looking for you to find. and we should be getting you some feedback on your report and what you've looked at on that fairly shortly. But in the meantime, hopefully this group feedback has been useful and just showed you, hopefully as I've been going through this, you were kind of ticking things off in your head thinking, yep, I found that, yep, I found that, I fixed that, or oh, how did I not notice that? Or maybe I really did notice that any password would work for any user and probably should have done something about that. So thank you very much. That ends my revision sessions and things now, so I shall now be passing on to Ed to continue the other part of the module. Hopefully you've found all of this a very fun and interesting journey. If you've got it, I'll be putting up these revision slides onto the notes page so you'll be able to look through all the stuff that I've gone over in these past couple of lectures. And if you do have any questions or anything you're not sure about, then I encourage you to, in the first case, post it on the Facebook group, because it's probably likely that other people also have the same questions, and everybody else can all see the answers as well. But if the worst comes to the worst, you can drop me an email as well. But usually, I'll reply far faster on Facebook than on email, because I've got 7,000 emails, whereas Facebook keeps on shouting at me until I reply to things on there. So I encourage you, ask on Facebook first, and then if that fails, drop me an email if you've got any questions about this side of the material. In the meantime, good luck, best wishes for your exams, and it's been a pleasure teaching you.
就没了，也没点数据。
操他妈的，全是重点。你说这个最近讲的这些最好吗？咱 rubber band， 在他那部分是最高的。啊
？Okay, 10th grade. We start again at 2 o'clock.
他考的那部分，他的那个。不是有这个老师，这个老师，这个老师还有另外一个老师讲是吧？两个那部分是正式的是吧？他这部分主要讲感觉。